points behind. And, he may not get the victory, but I think it speaks to what both parties could and should do in 2016. Have ideas. People are still in survival mode. And, it's not a mandate for Republican ideas as much as people are so desperate they want any kind of change.
Yeah. Harris, North Carolina, that was a huge one. That one I thought was the petri dish for how this was going to go, really, because it was a referendum on President Obama.
Dollars spent on ads. And I hope you're right, Tucker. I hope that across the board the message is that the negative advertising doesn't work. I don't know, though, because I wonder if this wasn't more of a referendum against the, really, your policies are on the ballot. And I would challenge Democrats to get some new material, because they actually tried to use what the GOP won successfully with in 2010, anything but Obama. The Democrats tried to use that, and it didn't work for them.
Yeah,
I think false.
Disingenuous.
I think it's a reminder to Democrats that the economy, and to Republicans, that the economy is number one. People are focused on jobs. When you looked at all of the polling, the exit polling, people were constantly talking about economy, jobs. They lost faith in this administration to deliver on that point. And that is a key opportunity for Republicans when it comes to Obamacare, when it comes to Keystone. We've been talking about Keystone and putting clean legislation on the president's desk. I think the message from voters is stop with the nonsense. Stop with this war on women. Stop talking about birth control when we're all trying to figure out how to put food on the table.
Well,
that was the
there
message.
is an undercurrent of economic populism across the country on both sides. And the Republican candidates won. Tom Tillis, for example, a businessman who was hit on this outsourcing thing, probably legit. I mean, he said it. He changed during that campaign. He did not accept the endorsement or get the endorsement of the Chamber of Commerce and became this kind of faintly economic populist figure. Not some radical or anything, but trying to sympathize with middle-class voters.
Tucker, if you're President Obama, and he's going to come out and speak later, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit, he tried to save his party. But again, you look at the exit polls, this was a referendum on him and his policies.
Did he really try to save his party?
He tried, and they wouldn't let him.
I mean, I don't know.
They wouldn't let him.
Because this was the
yes
we can candidate.
So they wouldn't let him in the district.
I didn't see any hashtagging. I didn't see boards with, bring back our party. Yeah, I didn't see. I don't know. Was it a genuine try?
He is going to blame. He's going to blame the Democrats. He will blame the Democrats who did not allow him to come run with them. Yeah. So all these Senate Democrats who lost, who didn't have the president go stuff for them, he's going to use, that as an excuse. And he's also, he's going to talk about the economy, but he really took it in the face.
He's going to. He already is. The White House is saying on background he was benched. He had a foot injury in effect. If this were a basketball game, the star player couldn't play.
He didn't play basketball
because I noticed that he was in Massachusetts for Martha Coakley, and he was in Maryland. But wait a second, Larry Hogan just got elected in Maryland. The states that he played in, it seemed to turn voters off.
Also, I want to bring up this point. Peter Beinart writes this excellent column in The Atlantic today. Very, very smart column. He says that Republicans are getting hungrier and hungrier to win. The longer they stay out of the White House, they want to win. That means they're showing up. And Tucker, can you weigh in on this? I thought this was fascinating. They gave candidates this time around the space, he writes, to be more moderate and unite the party. We saw the party really coalesce. They rebuked the Tea Party, and they were able to win in states that a lot of people said they may not.
Well, they forced out candidates that didn't pass that test. Now, there's a massive internal division in the Republican Party over this, but they didn't convince anyone. They used force and arm locks, pretty heavy-duty tactics behind the scenes to weed out anybody they thought was unelectable.
Or a Ron Paul.
Or Ron Paul. And there's a lot of resentment about
the rules in 2012 that will be reflected in 2016. But you bring up a really good point about the internal strife. And, I worry about the candidates in the Liberty Caucus. I worry that they are going to be marginalized, especially in the House, where they have this overwhelming majority. And, they have actively been campaigning against John Boehner, and he is going to squash their dreams.
On the heels of that, and you say libertarian, I'm thinking just kind of third party in general. What do you guys think about Greg Orman and how that turned out in Kansas? Because, he was running so far ahead of, and I've been told recently, don't call them establishment Republicans, call them traditional Republicans, whatever you call them.
Who told you that? That's establishment Republican.
Right. That's what Pat Roberts would be. He would be whatever fill-in-the-blank Republican you want to put him in there. But it was interesting to see, kind of the swooping in of some big names in the Republican Party come in and work with Pat Roberts, and a lot of cash flow into the state of Kansas, outside money really pushing back Greg Orman.
You're the Independent on the couch, host of the Independents on the Fox Business Network. What do you think about the Independent?
I think that, Greg Orman is one of those people. There are a lot of voters who are so sick of both sides. And here's a guy, you know, they're in the desert, and it looked like he was at the Oasis. You know, it looked like he was the guy who had water and hot towels, but really it was just another sandy mirage.
Well, people figured out there is no independent party in the United States Senate. It's a binary system. You're caucusing, you know, no more than Bernie Sanders or Angus King. He was going to caucus with the Democrats.
So Joe Biden filled in the blank for him yesterday, and that was really painful, right? To have the vice president step in and say, well, I think I know how Greg Orman would vote if he gets in. He's going to caucus with the Democrats.
Biden make a mistake and tell you the truth.
We've got to go into the governor's races. We have to talk about some big surprises last night. If you turned on some of the other networks, Jedediah, the faces of certain Democratic analysts were melting off over big losses in states like Maryland, Illinois, Massachusetts. These are deeply blue states that went Republican last night, and they also, the GOP was able to hold on to Wisconsin with Scott Walker, a potential 2016 candidate, and Florida, which are going to be integral states in 2016. So huge stories in these governorships.
Yeah, I thought Scott Walker's race was enormous because people have really been looking to him. Conservatives have been looking to him as a fighter. He's somebody who doesn't back down. He's taken on public sector unions. I saw a lot of people on Twitter saying, if nothing else, let Scott Walker win because it was so pivotal and so important. But yeah, you're looking at all these Democrat states where you see an abandonment of Democrat principles. Because guess what? In those states, people are also out of work. People are also dealing with Obamacare. People are also feeling the brunt of these policies. And they're saying, you know what? Forget my party affiliation. I want a job. I want to stop paying these high fees. I want someone who's going to bring some growth into my area, some jobs, some businesses, pro-business, pro-small business environment.
Yeah, and if taxpayers are funding those pensions, you know, they're the ones who are getting hit. So ultimately in Wisconsin, it is an economic issue. And race and abortion aren't going to get people's houses remodeled. They're not going to put people back to work. But if you're standing up to the unions and that actually lowers taxes and allows for economic growth in your state so businesses can actually create jobs, that's a more that's an inspiring message.
And I would say that then gives you another selling point within kind of restructuring any kind of GOP brand going forward. That this works. It worked in Wisconsin. It can work all over the country.
And you also have lessons last night that we will be studying for days to come.